Welcome to the show. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the like button so we can bring you more interesting topics that we know that you like. Speaking recently with a medical expert at Pfizer, it turns out that possibly our environment and the climate can change the way we speak. It was a very interesting conversation, and I wanted to sort of bring you some of the anecdotes and things that we went over. So, many factors influence our languages and accents. Where we live, where we grew up, what our parents sounded like. But in recent years, researchers have been investigating another possible influence: climate. Very interesting, right? Let's take a look. The idea that climate affects language is not new, but only recently have researchers had the tools to properly investigate the hypothesis. Now, large databases of languages from around the world, coupled with the computing power to look for patterns in those languages and match those with climate data, are making it possible to see whether climate influences language, and if so, how. Caleb Everett, an anthropologist, who studies language across the world's cultures, says that linguists generally agree that in languages there is a bias toward what experts call articulatory ease. In other words, we tend to use sounds that are easy to make. But what's easy to make can depend on environmental conditions. So some sounds are more difficult to make if the vocal cords are very dry. You will notice that that's why singers take care to prevent their vocal cords from drying out. In a 2017 paper, Everett and colleagues analyzed thousands of languages from two databases and found support for the idea that languages in very dry places rely less on vowels than languages in humid areas. Very interesting stuff. More recently, research published in 2023 analyzed data from more than 1,000 languages and found that languages in hot areas relied more on vowels, and those in humid areas employed more complex tonal sounds. Interesting. Meanwhile, languages spoken at higher altitudes used more ejective consonants. These are little sort of explosions made when the vocal folds are closed, explains Ian Madison, linguist and senior author of the 2023 paper. Forest cover plays a role as well. A lot of the inspiration for this work came from studies on birdsong, says Madison. One of the variables that predict the complexity of birdsong is the relative complexity of the local vegetation, he explains. So, if there is an area with a lot of obstructive plants. The song is simplified because transmission through that kind of environment is less effective and will disrupt a complex song that has a lot of trills and changes, says Madison. In dense vegetation, in high humidity, simple is more effective. Though the mobility of humans in the last sort of 50 to 100 years, however, means that other factors may soon swamp the effect of climate, he says. Again, birds offer an interesting parallel. When birds move into an urban area with a lot of background noise, they have to change their songs to be heard over the din of the city. They either simplify the song so it's less masked by the sound, or they sing at a higher pitch to be heard above the traffic noise. Very fascinating stuff. Birds in cities are very loud. And like birdsong, human language changes when people of many different languages live in one location and try to make themselves understood. There are some languages where it seems like they're yelling. Chinese or Mandarin and Cantonese is one of them. Yoruba is another one. It seems like everybody's yelling. It's very tonal, where words with the same or similar letters can have many different meanings, unlike English, for example. So people coming together with different language backgrounds and arriving at some sort of compromise between inputs from the different languages could have such a strong impact on the future of so many languages that it may be very hard to detect the other kinds of effects, such as that of climate, says Madison. So, does the fact that the climate is changing mean human speech will change in response? Possibly. Madison estimates that it could take 300 to 500 years for vocal adaptations to climate to become a part of a language. What does that mean? That means that after 300 or 400 years of climate change, speech patterns around the world could be noticeably different. Over time, Madison says, if these theories are correct, basic changes in environmental conditions would have an impact on languages. However, he adds, if the planet keeps warming as much as it is at the moment, there won't be any people in large parts of the world. Leave a comment. We'd like to see what you think. How maybe you've experienced language in high altitudes, like places like Peru, for example, versus places that are valleys, or places that are very cold, or tropical regions. It'd be interesting to hear what everybody thinks. So, kindly leave a comment. We'd like to investigate this further. It's a very interesting topic about how people sound differently depending on what climate they're in. Very fascinating stuff. That brings us to the end of this episode. Please make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and head over to buymeacoffee.com/Samson King to make a donation to the channel. It goes a long way. And as always, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.